You gonna go in there with your Dewey on?
I can. It's funny because I forget now walking up with him.
Feeling yourself. I was like, it's a young man's game. He's trying to stay young. It's very easy though to forget that you had that on sometimes. That's probably one of my biggest fears is to go into a call and forget that I have on like a Dewey or something like that. But of course, I got a lot of hair, but just envisioning myself like, hey everybody, and I got the little rat koofy on.
Everybody looking at you.
What's going on? Why are they looking at me like that?
It isn't like going to the office. Anyway, welcome to another episode of Above Average Black Men. You got yours truly, Chris Bridges Sr.
Chris Jr., where again, as always, we're here to empower, inspire, and uplift the community. Excited for our episode tonight. My brother's not here, so I got to make sure that I drop his line. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe. Please begin to interact with us. We've began to get some of that within some of our shows live, and it's always been fun to kind of communicate with people back and forth live during the show. And we want to maintain that. But after the show ends, send us some comments, send us a message, send us a note. Send us a suggestion of who you want to see on the show, baby, something that you want to hear us talk about. So tonight, I think we have a great topic. I shared that idea or thought with a few people, and a lot of people agree. It's a great question. Great question. Like,
they agree, but the question is...
No, they agree that it's a great question, but like, do you believe in happily ever after?
Yeah, I talked to a lot of people too, man, so I'm anxious to get into
Disney.
But I got to ask you first, because I think your answer is going to be interesting.
Why does always everybody assume that my answer is going to be interesting?
Because I know you. I just know it's going to be interesting.
What's funny is like, I actually brought this up to my girlfriend. She very much wanted to know too. Like, oh, what is your answer? What is your response? I personally, I do believe in that. But I think it looks different for people when you talk about it. It's like when people say happily ever after, they think of like this fairy tale idea of like the rest of your life is going to be smooth sailing with your partner, and you're just going to have these great, amazing times. You just kind of like riding off or sailing off into the sunset. When I hear happily ever after, I mean, I think like just successfully kind of navigating life together, and that's through the ups and downs as well. I think even probably getting to a point where you are kind of older in life and maybe you have a little less problems. You may still have occasionally some, but just making it to the other side of that with somebody and building something, to me, that's happily ever after. So I do believe in it. It exists. Do I believe that it's obtainable for everybody? That's a different question. I believe that it is, but I just think because so many people have a different idea of what happily ever after is, that it's very hard or obtainable for people. It's like fantasized and like fairy tales now. That's what people live in. Like they just think that it's supposed to be all glitz and glam, like no challenging times. People ready to run immediately once they start to begin to have some problems. So again, I believe in it, but I don't think it looks the same as everybody else. What do you think? I think other people have a different definition of it. So
I'm sorry, I'm watching this show to another homer. It's like, this is crazy. Anyway, but I do believe it. I believe in it, and it's interesting because I asked this question to quite a few people today. So it is quite interesting, man. The different answers that I got. It's interesting for the different, just different perspective. But one thing I say, I know it's possible. I do agree with you when you say it's different for everybody, because it is. Because our level of success at things we want all is different. But I think it's obtainable. And there's no but in it. There's no but. And first I'm gonna go over some responses I got today. I was talking to somebody and they just got finished. And I didn't know when we started the conversation very nice young lady. She just finished an 8-year relationship. So she was saying how she has doubts. She says she has a girlfriend who, to your point, who is married, and she thinks that's a perfect couple. And then she talks to her girlfriend, and she hears these things, and I said it, the thing about perfection is you have two imperfect people, so nothing can ever be perfect.
Yeah.
So I think that's where you got to start at. So she was a little doubted. So I was talking to a guy, and this conversation just went off the rails because we went from 50-50 to wives killing their husbands for insurance money. So I don't know how he went. So we went way off the rails in that conversation. But he's divorced, and I think
He's
a
bitter.
little bit, a little bit. But I thought it was funny how his thing about happy ever after, because he and this is, I know you're gonna love this. He related it all to money. He said for women it's happy ever after because they get, it's about money, and I disagree with that because I told him money only lasts but so long, because if you want companionship, that stuff does matter. But his response to that was that she'll get a boy toy on the side. So his definition of happy ever after was gone. But I was talking.
How old was he?
I guess he's probably in his 50s.
Okay.
So then I was talking to another young lady. I was talking to her about it, and she was like, "No doubt about it, yes." She's like, "Yes." It's look, you know what? She had the big ring on her finger too. She's like, "Yes." So even when I proud a little bit because I was like, "Well, that's just now though. That's not ever after. Ever after is long term down the road," and she firmly believes in it. Now, however, when I talked to another young lady about it, she was a skeptic. Because first she was like, well, yeah. Then she said, well, it depends on, because you're going to have issues when you get in a relationship. It's not always going to be perfect and things are going to be wrong. And then I talked to another guy, and he was like unequivocally no. He didn't hesitate. He was like, no.
I think what's funny is how you got a mixed bag of responses from
like,
people. Like, men and women, like some that believe in it and some that don't.
Well, you know why I was a mixed response? Because the last two questions that we asked, nobody's talking about. The last show we talked about does occupation matter?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to regress, but what I'm learning is a lot of people think that, but nobody says it. It's never verbalized.
People are talking about it.
No, not in the day. I mean,
not in a constructive way.
And not probably. Even in a. No, I'm not talking about like we talk about. Yeah. I mean, people not talking about that in relationships. They just making decisions. Nobody's saying this is just standard. This is what I want. This is what I want, but I'm just going to dump somebody or find somebody. It's not an open conversation where you meet somebody and say, hey, these are the ground rules. And if I fast forward to this, people don't think about happy ever after.
It's actually funny because I was just thinking about this. That, how cheesy and corny I would feel, and like, how does that come up in a conversation? Like, yo, how do you feel about happily ever after? That kind of sounded good how I said that though. But I'm just saying, but
it's a question that
I don't think people feel comfortable saying that.
But that's what's wrong. But I think it's a legitimate question because if you I tell people right now, I'm living my happily ever after. I am. It's not perfect, and we say this all the time. You have two imperfect people, but we're perfect for each other. Mm. So I know happily ever after is we gotta let Cinderella go. Nobody's showing up with a glass slipper saying,
Listen,
that's what
I think that's what I was going to probably ask a question next. Is like, do you think there's people who kind of confuse the idea of happily ever after with being happy?
Well, it's not even being happy. Most people don't, when you dig deeper, don't even understand what makes them happy. Mm-hmm. That's the problem. Because I asked everybody the same question. Well, what makes you happy? And it's this long pause. And people start thinking they reach it because they start naming a bunch of material stuff, but that's temporary.
Material stuff or acts and stuff like that.
Or if you think a person is responsible for making you happy, that's not right either. So back to happily ever after, and I think the way people view marriage now, nobody's thinking ever after. Nobody's still talking about I'm going to be married for 20, 30 years. There's still a group of people that say, well, if it don't work, I'm getting out.
But I think to the point that I just kind of made and you referenced and talked about is this where people kind of put their happiness solely on that individual that they're talking to. And that's where I think like a lot of people get in trouble where it's like, oh, this person is not making me happy anymore. I need to go find that elsewhere. And that's where it's like sometimes to me, the idea of happily ever after is like, man, I don't think people are on the same page or in line when we talk about that. Like you referenced like how you and mom, you're imperfect. I don't think that people enter into relationships, you know, kind of being open or accepting to the fact that this person is not going to be the perfect person all the time.
But the person is living a fantasy life.
Yeah,
Because
that's where we live today.
but
I'm glad you said that.
but
You know, because maybe that's
let
what
me tell you
every
why.
show. That's what I've been trying to get you to realize,
But
that we live in fantasy land.
but that's not a reality, because if you are, first of all, any living organism, that does not change eventually dies. And I'm going somewhere with this. So if you think you're going to marry somebody and they're going to be the same person for 20 years, something is wrong with you.
Yeah.
Because people change, or something is wrong with them because people change. And I think this is where the challenge is coming from, because people start to grow, people start to mature, people see things differently. So, but see, that's part of happily ever after, is the process, man. It is building something. It's like, that's when you invent something, that's great, but putting it together and watching it develop, that's the fun part. Like, if you look at my sports analogy, you draft these players and you see it all come together, man. That's part of the process.
Yeah.
That's what makes it good. That to me, that's what makes happily ever after, is because you look at this. We started here. You look at the things you built together, and it has always been smooth. It's great, but that's looking back, saying, man, I learned from that. We're closer because of that. I have a better understanding of who you are because of that. So you're working towards happily ever after. I think we think happily ever after is you know, um, like you said, fairy tale thing. Oh, everything will be perfect. I'm always gonna get my way. No, it's accumulation of things.
I think something that you kind of referenced or brought up is like, just people live in the moment.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking and thinking of the future, like how to get there, like what that looks like. Even if they do think of the future, like a lot of people, they just think it up into the wedding, the honeymoon.
But see, and I agree with you. But isn't that part of the problem?
Yeah, that is part of the problem. But I think that also kind of goes to the point in which I'm saying is like this warped view on happily ever after. Like, I think people just more so are celebrating or looking more so at the milestones. Like, like, all right, well, part of my happily ever after is we had a great wedding, we had a good honeymoon, we just like, all right, we had a baby now. Like, you know what I mean? It's just all like the highlights.
Okay,
and milestones.
That's what you just said, and I'll take that. If you look at, and this every parent may not say, but it's like when you have a kid, you have a child, man, and you're raising that child. It's not all perfect. It's not all cookies and cream. But at the end, when you see that child become the responsible adult, whatever their level of success is, that's happily ever after. But part of the process is watching the child go through it, to grow and develop and blossom, becoming who it is. That's happily ever after. Yeah. I mean, to me, you look. It's like if you plant a tree, you're not gonna come out tomorrow morning and the tree's gonna be full grown. It's a process that goes through it. Like roses, you prune a rose bush. You can't just let it grow because it won't blossom. You got to prune it. So I think I agree with you. People do think it's this whimsical thing, but it's not. It's a process. And happily ever after, even in the fairy tales, they went through something. Cinderella had to go through something to get to happily ever after.
Nobody sees
Sleeping Beauty had to go through something.
I'm not talking about
and
that.
I know we're not talking fairy tales.
But actually, that was actually probably one of my questions, or a point that I was going to make next is like, where do you think this like kind of fantasy, whimsical idea of like relationships being kind of easy or seamless just come from?
Let me tell you, that's a whole show. But I think no, because I do. I think it comes from four things. I think one, and I hate that we do this almost every show, social media. I think social media has created this unreal sense of reality that people have adapted as an escape mechanism that somehow become real.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. I think two, the media. And I know we did social media, but the media, because if you look at, they're constantly telling you what success is. You gotta have a Beamer. You gotta have a luxury car. You need to live here. You need to look a certain way. And you hear that over and over and over again. You hear it over and over again. I think part of it is we talked about this on this show too. We covered a lot of stuff. When you have the male-female battle. Yeah. Because now it's not us coming together, and we talked about last week when somebody makes more money, whatever it is. You got that battle, and somebody always want to be in control. There's no coming together of the mind because society says that we equal and all that stuff and everything, and not that. And I'm not saying no one is greater, one less, but somebody has to lead all the time.
Yeah,
it can't be a tie. Somebody has to lead. And then I think the fourth thing I think that's really amazing is the fact that, is we talked about this too, is people settle for mediocrity. People are no longer saying, a lot of people, they're not striving for greatness. They're not striving for excellence. They're not trying to maximize their potential. I just want just enough.
Mhm.
And I think when you put all that together, yeah, so the fairy tale thing, it becomes a fantasy. Because, it's a guy who played the lottery for 40 years. $50 a week for lottery for 40 years. Because that, now he invested that $50 a week
Probably
over a
could have
4-year
already
period.
been rich. So
Yeah,
like,
but when you get stuck in that also reality is the get rich thing. Because I want to have it. I was watching something and the guy asked a question. I forgot what he said. He asked the guy, he said, would you rather have $1 million today, or $10,000 for the next, I forget, but it was sometime, but I forget the time frame he said. And the guy said, I want $1 million. So the guy said, well, wait a minute, why? He said, because there's more zeros. He said, in actuality, it's not. If you take this $10 over the period of time,
you have more, or
but
you could do more.
But that example, but we all want instant gratification. We all want everything right now, and our sense of reality is based on fantasy. It's based on obtaining material things. It's based on having a relationship where we don't argue, we don't disagree all the time. We walk around whistling. Everybody gets their way all the time, but that's not reality.
And I think again, that's where people get in trouble at when they think of this idea of happily ever after. Like it just has to be like this seamless, easy thing that you are supposed to go through. Like,
and sometimes it is.
Right. Sometimes it is, and then sometimes it's going to be difficult. You have your challenges and your ups and downs. But I just think when it comes to dating nowadays, like there's a lot of confusion, or just like you said, lack of communication, where people aren't having these types of conversations or open dialogue about what it looks like, because you want to be on the same page.
Do people know to ask those questions?
No.
You just said something that was interesting. You said because you felt like it just wasn't natural to ask that question when you felt funny.
Like, but you want to know what?
Because why wouldn't you want to know what somebody?
Because I wouldn't say exactly like that. Like, all right, what does happily ever after look like? But I do want to know, like, what does a future look like for you? Like, are we on the same page with this? I would say happily, because it's just happily ever after. Because because in my mind, I do know that when you say that, especially in this day and age, like, again, it's people who think of it in this fantasy type of way. So
what you want to know? What you want to know that if I'm dating somebody, I'm serious. I want to know if this person thinks it's not obtainable. If this person thinks that it can't be achieved. I want to know. I don't want to be thinking I'm in this long-term relationship and this person is like, well, yeah, this is as good as it gets. And I'm thinking like the bar is up here.
I mean, I understand that. Nobody's saying that this is that. I don't know. I don't think I'm saying that per se.
No, but I'm saying I'm just that's my point about why I would ask the question, because I need to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah. But again, I think I just ask it differently. I would be as direct, like happily ever after.
Look, man.
That's because you're very old school.
If you don't ask, you don't know.
You're very old school.
If you don't ask,
you're very old school. And I think again, like again, it's this fantasy world that we live in nowadays, where happily ever after for some people it's like, oh, you paying my bills. You taking care of this the rest of my life. I don't have to worry about that. Like, for some people, that's happily ever after, and I think that.
But it's more to it. See, my thing is, and
for some people, like, oh, I just would have had a kid and I would have had a baby. But again, that doesn't come without hardship. I think that's the point.
But what happens when you desire companionship? And this is what I was telling the guy today who he was talking about the financial aspect. Yeah. So what happens when you desire companionship? When nobody wants to die alone. Nobody wants to be alone all the time. Nobody wants to have all this great stuff and have nobody to share it with. So my question, so what happens when that occurs? Money will make you feel better and it kind of appease you, but there comes a time when you need more than that.
Yeah.
And all you gotta do is look at some of the problems people in Hollywood have. They got money.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I believe in understanding that adage of like, more money, more problems, but it's hard to say that. I mean, hard to believe in that if you're in a position where.
I just think it's more money, different problems. I don't say more problems. I say different problems.
It's certainly different problems. A different level of problems, but I think it's still important to people.
But I'm not saying it shouldn't be important, but it's like, to me, and I say this, we always end up coming here. You want to, if your relationship is based solely on finances, that's not a healthy relationship because you can't control what happens. You
Mhm.
know, something can happen and your finances have to tighten up. That's just a fact of life. But so that's the basis of your relationship. What happens to your relationship when that? What it's just going to deteriorate.
I think like it's funny because we talk about this quite often. And, like we almost kind of talk around it, like back past it, back and forth. Because I think it's just in this sense, maybe it's like a difference in generationally, like how things are going at this moment in time. Like that's
Like this
very,
generation.
yeah, it is. Like yo, even when you're saying this, I'm like, man, thinking of like why did people get married back then? Like, you know, the idea for real, no. And it's very different today because like I said before, like people are doing it for all different types of reasons that I don't think were the same when you were growing up
Well,
or when our grandparents even were
I'm
growing
not
up.
saying no. And I think see that's why I think is because it, not on my time, but before my time, there were arranged marriages. They were arranged marriages. There were marriages where people said, okay, you're going to marry so and so. I'm sure people for centuries have gotten married for financial gain or to improve a situation in life. So it's not new. I
Yeah,
just think is more accessible. We can see more now because I keep blaming it, but because of social media and because of things.
sound like
So
me.
no, but it is. It's out there. Before, if I did something in my neighborhood, nobody would know. But now
Huh.
everybody's filming it.
Yeah,
Before and they posting stuff
filming it,
and they
messages being
posting stuff.
shared, they talking
But how
about
much?
it, like.
Well, I would never post anything private, but then they post something private behind his statement. So I think there's a lot to do with it. But I think if it's like dreaming, man. Like I couldn't see anybody going into a relationship not thinking, a serious relationship, saying I'm going to spend the rest of my life with somebody without believing they could be happily ever after. I just don't get that. I don't understand. And that's just me. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying for me, I gotta have all or nothing, man. I could, if I was single, I could not be in a situation with somebody that told me they didn't believe in happily ever after. And you know what? I'm wasting my time.
And I think where the place where it probably starts is like asking, like, what does that even mean to you? Or like, what does that look like? You know,
Man, I got somebody to spend the rest of my life with, man. That has my back. And what has my back mean? They'll always agree with me because they're gonna hold me accountable. If I'm out of pocket, they're gonna tell me I'm out of pocket. If I'm doing something I ain't supposed to be doing, they're gonna let me know. But they got my back.
yeah.
And even when they do it, it's gonna be in a constructive way. Happily ever after is somebody, man, that we sharing dreams and goals. Even the dreams and goals that I have, they may not feel like that specifically for them, but they recognize it's for the greater good.
Mm-hmm.
They recognize and they support me in my dreams and goals. That's happily ever after me, man. Yeah, money. I want to be able to do stuff, do some like travel, do some things. But that's only a part of it.
Yeah.
I just think having that person, man, that you connect with, that through thick and thin, man. When they sick, you take care of them, man. When you sick, they take care of you. You both want to enjoy things together. It's not just about me, 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 me. So to me, that's happily ever after. Now I know some people think it's about material things.
Yeah. I mean, because I believe in that too, though. That happily ever after is like being with somebody that you can kind of withstand the ups and downs of life, and kind of having and knowing that understanding that there's going to be some challenging days and some challenging times, but like you guys are each other's support system.
Because that's life. Because people change, and I got somebody put here. They said women have to answer the question of companionship, not men. And I disagree with that. Men want companionship. I know we want to be bravado and say we don't need nobody, but that men want companionship too. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's funny because
universal
we really all do. It may look different for everybody. Like we're tribal creatures by nature, right? You know what I mean? So,
But that's a good point. The looking different is the part I think people don't understand. The looking different is where because somebody's companionship could be just have somebody to date.
mhm.
Just they go home and they go home. That could be their definition of companionship. I don't live with nobody. I don't get married, but you go to your place, they go to my place.
You go to your side of the house. I see you tonight at the bed. Like it's just like.
But I think getting back to, I don't know. I just think
they don't talk.
I mean, it's the same thing when and I probably should have asked the same question. Do you believe in true love? Because I think they go hand in hand. And I think if you really love somebody, and you say I love you, and you sold out for the relationship, how can you not think happily ever after? It doesn't mean it guarantees it's going to be smooth. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed. If you really love somebody, you should be able to work through like 99% of the stuff. Now, there's some things that's just not acceptable.
Yeah.
But there's some things that you should be able to work through, man. You know,
I just always feel like when you say that thing, some part of me just like wants to bring a little bit of negativity to it. Like, ugh. Like,
he says
what?
women wanted to be wives in those days. Being a wife in the 1920s was like winning the lottery. Not today. It's about material. That was good. That was good.
It is, but I
That was
mean,
good.
I think again that's like to the point that I've been making about how this generational shift, has been occurring and taking place where it's certainly changed like why
Well,
people are getting married or not. Yeah, like people still
well,
get married for love,
I
but
give you,
certainly the financial part is
but I'm giving you another
people
example.
get divorced for
One of
that.
the guys I was talking to today, he was 41 years old, and he said something to me, and I think that's part of the problem. He says, "Well, that's the norm. It's not the norm.
He said, "What's the norm now?"
The norm of people not getting married and no happy ever after." And I said, "See, that's the problem. That's not the norm. Maybe in your group of people, but that's not the norm for everybody in the world. We say that, and I think we easily adopt it because somebody says it's the norm, and then we allow it to become the norm. But that's not the norm. And then the other thing is, who says you got to line up with the norm? Who says it got to be like everybody? This is a 41-year-old dude. And I know he didn't mean anything by it, but I mean, why is that the answer? Because that's the norm. That's the
Because
norm. And so, look, I want happy ever after. And I don't care I don't care if I don't care if I spoke to 40 people today and they told me that to me, you got to have that. I don't think you can go into a relationship and say, man, I'm going to spend the rest of my life with this person, but you cap it.
you want to know what the problem is that there's a lot of delusion out there, and I feel like I've referenced this with this
every show that word comes up.
Delusion, yes. First it was fantasy, now you got back to
somebody
delusion.
somebody told me I was delusional because I was a Scorpio.
Oh my goodness! See, and that's part of the problem right there too. Like
what sign are you?
That's how you can't have happily ever after, because they in this whimsical world of judging people based off when you were born. So that's also part of it. But it's just I don't know. I think it's this warped ideal or perspective of like what happily ever after is. I think that people don't take into account that means that you will have some challenging times. Like this person that you're with may not necessarily make you happy every day, but then another part of it too is I don't think that people kind of take a step back enough to even look at the part that they play in.
Juicy and the family says, "Hi guys."
Yep.
She says that's right. So I don't know what point they're saying. Yeah, but I think, see, to me, I think like how do you? I don't know. How do you be happy if you don't if you put a ceiling on it? You get into a relationship and you don't think it's happy ever after. Why do it? Mm-hmm. Why get into a relationship and you don't think it's gonna maximize that relationship? I don't get that.
Yeah, and I think a good question that came up in our chat here is like just define love. That's something that you mentioned on the show before, where people probably enter into relationships and have different definitions on what love actually is. Like I'm thinking it's this one thing here, and this other person that's thinking this. So I think it's important that even like for us, maybe tonight, define that.
Well, like, I think, and he made an excellent point. That we've probably been to more funerals than weddings this year. Mm-hmm. I think that's he's right, but I think it's misleading. They're right. I think it's misleading because with COVID and everything going on, yeah, funerals are kind of ramping up. But fewer people are getting married. But see, I think, and I said this before, love is different for everybody. However, if you're going to be in a successful relationship, there needs to be some commonality in how you define love. And I say it because when I sit down and counsel a couple, that's one of the first questions I ask. One of the first questions I ask is, what's your definition of love? And over 80% of the time, couples write down two different things. And that's part of the problem. Because if I'm saying I'm in it for love to death do us part, and you saying you're in it to something money go wrong, it's tough, especially when money go wrong. But I think for me, love is two people committing to each other. Two people saying, you know what, we're gonna work this out. No matter what issues is, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna talk it out because us, the two of us together is more important than whatever may be coming between us. Mm-hmm. I think love is saying that, you know what, I'm not okay with crazy stuff you do, but I can accept you and your flaws. Now, I'm not talking about cheating and robbing and killing and murder, but your flaws, like maybe you don't put the toilet seat down. I don't know. Maybe you snore. I'm saying you're small, so maybe you can be a little sarcastic sometimes. Little things like that. I'm not saying abuse because abuse should never be tolerated. I want to make that abundantly clear. But I think that's love. Love is saying, yo, we're gonna work this thing out. Love is saying that, there's gonna be times, man, when we're not gonna look at each other and see stars and fireworks and all that great stuff, but we're gonna keep working at it.
Yeah. And I feel like we had somebody just chime in, Gary, here, that love is more than a feeling. It's a commitment. I think that's in line with everything that you're saying right here. And again, where some of the confusion comes from, kind of when people are out here dating or courting or getting together, is it's that misunderstanding on actually what is love.
Because he said it's more than a feeling, and it's also a decision. Love is also a decision. Love is a decision to say, you know what, I'm going to make this work. Love is a decision, and this is the part I think where people get in trouble. And I will love feedback. When you love somebody, that means you put them first. I'm not talking about as far as living or dying, but you know what? I'm going to look at this from their perspective. It's not always how I see things. Always how, let me look from the other perspective. When you love somebody, it's like the Bible says. You love folks like you treat people like you want to be treated. You love your neighbors, you love yourself. If you're in a relationship with somebody, you should not treat them any different than you want them to treat you. I mean, that's like a rule of thumb.
Yeah.
When you're in love with somebody, man, so rude and dogging them out and all that stuff, that shouldn't be happening. Being disrespectful and not talking to them or not, if you don't want it done to you, that should not be a part of the relationship. I think love should generate respect. Doesn't mean we agree on everything, but even our disagreements, there should be a level of respect.
Mm-hmm. And I'm like, again, I believe that. I've been fortunate enough where I've had that as an example in my life, but some people aren't fortunate enough to kind of see that. They have a warped idea and perspective or what actually love is. And I think we probably see that a lot more now today, probably than we have previously.
Man, because when you're dating, it's like,
and that's a big part of again, the idea of happily ever after. Like, I think.
But when you're dating somebody, it's like a job interview. It should be. You need to ask questions, man.
Some people ain't got jobs,
but you shouldn't be sitting.
Never had a job.
But you can't be sitting there like you just assuming. You should. What is your? Hey, and I say this to you all the time. You love me. What's your definition of love? I didn't know, because I didn't know what does that mean. Because you can love popcorn, you can love your car, you can love your sneakers, you can love a lot of stuff, man. But what does that mean? What does that look like? I mean, you need to ask that question. And I told you, number 2 question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Professionally and personally. You need to ask that question.
It's funny, like when you were talking about like what's your idea of love, I thought immediately about the love languages.
Next you're gonna tell me somebody from Mars and somebody from
like that, but that like that's kind of the stuff that's out there.
But that's because, like you said, nobody talks about that. Why not? If you're going to be serious with somebody, you need to ask those questions.
There's so many people where their love language is gifts. Like, you wouldn't understand.
Yeah, but some people, they love language like they text. It's not coherent in a normal conversation. So you need to understand that. I mean, you can text LOL, but you're not going to say LOL when you're talking to somebody. You can say shaking my head, but you ain't going to say SMA. I mean, so I get it, but I think, so I mean, again, it goes back to you need to ask questions when you're dating somebody, man. And happily ever after should be one of the questions that you ask. You can go ahead.
So we got another kind of comment in here. Most mothers have underdeveloped their sons. Their sons are all ill-equipped to be in relationships because they are treated like babies well into their 20s.
This must be a female.
Oh, you want to know what's crazy? I mean, because I agree with that.
I'm not disagreeing with her, but women are more apt to have that discussion than men. Most men are not going to say that about themselves.
Are you sure? I think more men agree with her. More men are apt to say that about other men. They won't say it about themselves.
Let me tell you, man.
I think that
hopefully nobody that's watching, I'm about to say this. Hopefully they don't watch this show. Let me tell you. I was having a conversation with somebody today about that. That there's this is a group of men who are
yeah, like I said,
I like that. It's a group of men who I've never seen men like this before in my life. They're like cuddle, super sensitive, don't want to take responsibility for anything, and I'm like, I don't understand. How did you get this far in life? And then this gentleman right here just pointed out. But this goes back to what I said. If you were raised like that, at what point did you make a conscious decision that I need to change? Because it's not always somebody else. at some point you got to realize I'm the common denominator. And if I'm the one that's blocking me from being happy for ever after, I got to look at that. What choices I'm making, what decisions I'm making, because I don't. And again, I hate to sound like a broken record. I don't want to be with somebody that's not saying they will live happily ever after. I'm not. Look, if I want that, I'll rent a car.
Why?
Just like renting a car, I can take the car back when I'm done with it.
It
ain't no long-term relationship.
That's a good way to.
It ain't no long-term relationship. I'm gonna rent the car, drive this car, and you know what? When I'm tired of it, I'm gonna take it back. I'm gonna take it back. I'm having fun. I'm gonna have a ball, but when I'm done, I'm gonna take it back. There's no long-term commitment to a rental car, man. And you don't even treat the rental car the same. You hit potholes. You go through all kind of stuff. So I think but that's what's wrong, man. I think we all need a good love story. And I know I'm gonna sound mushy. We do. We all need a good love story, man. We all should be able to have that, man. We all should be able to say, like, man, you know what? And some of it is not gonna turn out okay. Because you know why? It takes two people to be in a successful relationship.
Yes.
However, you can't close yourself down and just I'm going to shut myself off because then you never experience. So even if you do find somebody who believes in it, you got the fence up, you got the wall up. You blocking them out, man. You blocking it.
That is kind of, I think, sums up how dating is today. It's like a lot of people that had their guards up. And I think that's why, again, when you kind of ask this question of happily ever after, it's easy for you to say you've been married for 30 plus years. Congratulations to you.
It ain't easy. Who's saying it was easy? Somebody else said that to me today. No, it's not easy,
That's
man.
a tremendous feat.
It takes work. It takes sacrifice. It takes commitment.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of stuff to make. And you know what? It takes being humble.
Some people barely make it 30 years by themselves.
You know what? Somebody said this to me, and they said, well, man, what's the secret? What's the secret? And then they laughed when I told them. I said, you know what? And I said this to the guys on Monday night. I said, let me tell you something, man. The key to being not just successful marriage, successful relationship, and any successful relationship is one, learning when to respond. Two, learning how you respond. Three, learning if you even need to respond. Because some things you gotta say, you know what? I'll deal with this later and calm her heads because I know what she is. Some things you gotta say, okay, how am I gonna say this? Because I don't want to come off, so I gotta phrase it in a certain way. And then sometimes you gotta say, you know what, that's not even worth me responding to.
I'm actually kind of glad that you're saying that because my mind now is thinking, if you do believe in this idea that happily ever after does exist, it's like, man, what does that look like? Like how can you paint that picture for somebody who may be thinking like, oh no, impossible.
It's not impossible, but first of all, let me start here. It takes two people. I'll make it abundantly clear, man. There is no happily ever after. It's just one person. I think I love what the gentleman right here said because being able to take a look at yourself and see, am I contributing to what's wrong, or am I trying to make what's wrong better? I think that's a way. But for me, happily ever after is like I said before, man, is understanding the process, understanding that the road is not always going to be smooth, it's not always going to be perfect. You know what? But when it is, what a ride. It's understanding that we are going to have some trials and tribulations because people grow. I'm not the same dude I was when I got married. I was immature when I got married. I was just having a good time when I got married. Then as you mature, you get older. I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to do things. Early on, I just wanted to get money. I just was chasing money. As you get older, you feel like it's not just about chasing money.
Did you step into it knowing like, hey, I'm going to change and grow. She's going to change and grow, and I'm going to be accepted?
No, because nobody told me that. That's why I had these conversations. That's why I had these conversations with you and Devin and Nicole because I nobody ever told me that. I sit down with grown people who never knew that because nobody ever explained to them that when you get into a relationship, the same people you are year one, you're not going to be year 5 because you're growing. Somebody's growing.
Yeah.
Somebody may say, I want to go back to school. Somebody may say, you know what, hey, I'm serious about church now.
And you know what though?
There's so many things that people change. However, happily ever after means you're working through that process.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm very grateful that we've had that conversation, and I can have the understanding and know like, hey, I'm going to change, you're going to change, and we're going to like both be able to change and grow together. But when I think of like this idea again of happily ever after, I don't think
You
people.
just ain't so.
I'm not.
I can hear it in your voice. I can hear how you saying it. You like, come on, man. I can tell the way you saying it.
It like hurts me to say it every time. I'm like, happily ever after. No, because you want to know why? Because listen,
I get it for an example. It's like when I was playing sports. I didn't think anybody could beat me. Every time I walked on the floor, it was basketball, nobody could beat me. Baseball, nobody's going to get me out. Football, nobody can stop me. But the reality of it all, it wasn't true.
Mm-hmm.
But my mindset was when I went out there, and that made me better because I went out there with that mindset and I worked harder to make it happen. It's the same thing with happily ever after, man. You gotta have a mindset to say, we can do this. You can't go into it thinking, well, this is gonna go wrong, this is gonna go wrong, or Uncle Pete didn't work out for Uncle Pete, didn't work out for Aunt Pete. No, you gotta go in the mindset that you know what, I'm gonna achieve that goal.
I can admit,
I'm gonna do what I gotta do.
You know what? Like I will say that people, my age generation, people think like that. People really do think like that. They look at, even if they see somebody in their family that was married for a long time, they see them struggling now. They're like, oh my goodness, if they can't get it together, like what is that? What about me? Like there's no hope for me or everybody else.
Gary, we on the same page. So
it's like,
bro. But why do you compare yourself to some? On my devotion today, one of the things I say in my devotion today, you heard me say this forever. I said, you should be reading them, by the way, because I know I sent them to you too. But anyway,
they're lengthy morning reads.
But what did I say at the end? I've always told y'all, walk in the joint like you own it, man.
Yeah.
You never walk into a place feeling intimidated or feeling like you got to be somebody else or you less than anybody else. So you're walking like you own it. And that's the same way you gotta live you can't live your life based on what somebody else did not do, what they could, because that ain't us.
All right. Yeah.
That's not us. We all have different gifts and talents. If I sat down and said, and I compared myself to everybody in my neighborhood, I would have got what everybody else in my neighborhood got.
But because it's like here two sides of that there. It's like you do want to see like somebody that like you can aspire to be or look up to. Not just saying I want to have exactly what they have, but it's like that idea of like just knowing and seeing like, man, that's possible. Like, okay. Like, yeah, they did that. Or even if it's somebody close to you, like somebody you feel like you can go to and be like, man, how did you do that?
But that's different. That's different saying I have somebody to aspire to than somebody to compare myself to. That's different. And I think that's why we go full circle. That's why people don't think about happily ever after, because you're comparing yourself to all the bad stuff. Like my man said, more funerals than weddings. You know what? But I don't focus on the funerals. I focus on the weddings. I don't more life. But it's like the glass half empty, the glass half full. I think our focus has to be different. If you go into a relationship, carrying the burdens of all your past relationships, it's not going to work. And if you go into a relationship thinking because 4 people hurt me before is inevitable, it's not going to work because you're so busy waiting for a good friend of mine said, waiting for the other shoe to drop. That you just anticipating it.
It's a lot of hurt people out here.
I know it. I'm not dismissing somebody's hurt, but you can never see. And I say this, because I started another workshop in the shelter yesterday with a group of mixed group of guys and girls, and I told them the same thing because we were talking about the importance of nurturing yourself, and it's this ties in because if you don't take care of yourself, you never see happily ever after because you going through all your stuff, And I asked them a question. So when I'm asking you the same question, and everybody out there that's putting check in the box and everything, I'm really curious about this. Why do we allow after, let me rephrase that. Why is it that when people hurt us, we now hurt ourselves? I don't understand.
What do you mean by we hurt ourselves?
Because somebody hurt me.
Like we locked down?
Yeah, somebody hurt me. Or 2 people hurt me. So now I'm hurting myself because I refuse to care about anybody else. I'm hurting myself. I'm not hurting those 2 people. Or in their instance,
your guard up.
On their instance, they started taking drugs. They started getting high. They became addicted to something. I don't understand that. While we take somebody who hurt us, we take and turn around and hurt ourselves. And there's no different. There's a difference of putting your guard up. The young lady who told me about the 8-year relationship, I got it. She has a guard up, but she is open. She says, right now, I'm just not ready.
Yeah.
Right now, I just got to go through something, which is wisdom. I got to get myself right because I don't want to carry this baggage, this garbage into my next relationship. Even in church, and I know I'm going to get beat up for this, even in church, we allow somebody else to define our relationship. No, and every relationship is different. Like your mom and I, it's just totally different.
Yeah.
I iron, I do laundry, I do that stuff.
Yeah.
And it works for us.
Right.
So I think we got to stop comparing ourselves to other people. Stop trying to be like somebody else and say, you know what, I want to be the best version of me I can be. And you know what, I deserve happily ever after. I don't care if Joe, Jang, Pete, Bob, and Brucey Ann, whoever they are. I don't care if they never got it. I want to be different.
I mean, I don't want people to think that I don't believe that it doesn't exist.
Yeah, you keep saying.
I just have, I just have
questions.
questions around like
You have
again.
doubts.
The,
You don't have questions.
no,
You have doubts.
I have questions surrounding about like what that actually looks like, or the meaning of that, and that I think there certainly is kind of within my generation.
This
now.
guy's on the road tonight.
Within my generation now, and like younger generations, like
him and Gary are both on the road tonight.
Nobody's thinking about those things. Like,
and you know what? You gotta read that because that's what he's talking about.
So let men know that they have to be introspective to put away childish things. Once we find that inner child that is blocking our passage to adulthood, then we can transcend into manhood. Yeah. Like I think,
but see why? And that's my point. Why is like I think every nobody. I don't think any. I know. Let me say. I shouldn't say that. Most people have never just had one love. You probably met somebody and they broke your heart. You want things, but if you carry it into every relationship you go into, you will never have another healthy relationship. If you allow that to make you determine that you're not going to live happily ever after, you may meet a person that's ready to live happily ever after with you, but you never obtain it because you got the block up, because you think it's not obtainable. So you're not getting the most out of your relationship. And then what happens is you end up being unsatisfied because you're not getting everything out of your relationship that you want.
That's deep.
Thank you.
Is that what you've been trying to get me to come to all night? Like, say, like, you know what? I can agree with that.
No, I'm just saying that we make things so complicated, and they don't need to be complicated. And maybe because I deal with so many different populations, and I see the hurt, and I see people. I'm never going to do this again, or all men or all women. I hear that all the time. All white people, all black people. I hear it all the time, man. And people talking out of hurt. And then when you talk them and you walk through the process with them, you hurting yourself more than anything else, because now I'm putting limits on me.
Yeah.
I'm not getting the most out of my life. So I'm going to go through my life expecting to get hurt. I'm going to go through my life not ever aiming to have the best possible relationship I can have with whoever God puts in my place, because I'm worried about something that somebody else did who now they living their best life. They all doing, they having a ball, and they holding you hostage.
Yeah. I feel like one thing that I kind of is like resonating with me just in this whole conversation is what's important, this idea of what love is, kind of, and that I think
tonight, man.
Most people do think that it's purely like emotion or a feeling that you have, and that's why some people easily fall in and out of love, and you see relationships falling apart. I think a big part of people kind of staying together, and what is part of this idea of happily ever after, is kind of having patience and some type of vision, and like looking beyond or past like these moments that we had, and having grace, and
But I think one of the problems that I see when I talk to people is we think negotiating or compromise is a bad thing.
Mm-hmm. Because the idea of winning and losing.
Yeah, we think that makes us weak. Mm-hmm. Instead of thinking in terms of what's best for my relationship.
Yeah.
How can I make this relationship? How can I maximize my relationship? How can we do this so this is mutually beneficial to both of us? And sometimes it means I got to be small. Sometimes it means that, like me, I'm a creature of habit. I want to come home. I want to have my dinner. I figure, look, I do everything else. I want to have dinner at a certain time. Well, last couple of weeks, your mom been working. I haven't getting dinner at a certain time. You know what? I got to get my own dinner.
Mm-hmm.
I got to get my own dinner, man. I got to manage that. And at first it was a little frustrating, but you know what? She got to do her thing. Then she got sick. So, so you learn that's how you get to happy ever after. You have to adjust. And sometimes in your adjustment, it's not about you. Sometimes the adjustment, you got to be small. I don't mean small like it's significant. I mean small like say, you know what? I got to put somebody's needs before mine.
Yeah.
I got to say, you know what? I understand this. At least I got to try to see it from the other point of view. And we talk about this all the time, especially when you get people in a relationship, because you bring in history from two families together. And this goes back to what I said before. This is why you better be asking questions. You need to know, because it's like my favorite analogy. I got a Volkswagen. She got 20 suitcases, I got 20 suitcases. All 20 ain't in that Volkswagen, so we got to start throwing stuff out. Now we open up suitcases, we have no idea what's in the suitcase.
Yeah, I think again, happily ever after. He just kind of made a good point here. Happily ever after and love are words, or phrases that women use to define what they don't have the logic to explain. I probably wouldn't say that.
But this goes back. But this
explain.
goes back to what I said before, and I've done this with different groups of people. I've done it with young people. I've done it with not so young people, and I'll ask two questions. Or three questions. We do the love question, depending on the group I'm doing. But if I'm working with teachers or other people, sometimes I'll say, "Who wants to be successful?" And everybody raise their hand. Okay, define success. And all hands up and out flying. So now people just start throwing stuff out that they think it makes you happy, or I want to buy a car. All material things. That doesn't define success, because there's a lot of successful people who are not rich, or don't buy. There's a lot of rich people who don't buy all that stuff. And then I'll ask them, well, who wants to be happy? Yeah, I want to be happy. What makes you happy? And to his point, most people can't explain that.
They can't.
They can't even define what happiness to them looks like. They give you some Hallmark bullcrap, or somebody else is going to make you happy. No, because that person is going to disappoint you one time or another. Nobody is going to go entire life. But so to his point, there's a lot of people, a lot of women. You ask them, like when we got the question about the job. Remember we asked about the occupation? Man, that was some women who were like totally confused by that, because they want what they wanted to say versus what it sounded like when it really started going around in their head. Yeah.
But maybe I don't want that broke guy.
But it wasn't even about broke. It was about
like
this. You telling me in this hand that you want this guy that's going to support you, that's going to nurture you and be there for you, but then you put a price tag on it. When you also got to make six figures. But you'll take the guy that makes six figures that's going to dog you out.
But this
goes back to what I'm saying is but see, that's why you got to really, before you get into a relationship, happily ever after, you need to find those things. What's going to make me happy? What this relationship is going, what am I expecting from my partner? I mean, look, 39 years, I know what to expect from your mom for the most part. We still growing and changing, but I do.
I mean, maybe those are, I think, the good questions to ask.
I told you I got my top 10
dive
questions.
into.
I got my top 10 questions. I should sell.
Where are those questions?
We just went through some
questions. I'm just saying, like, not for me, just in a general sense, like for.
But we don't ask those questions. That's why we never get to happy ever after. Because now I done spent $60,000 on a wedding. I spent all this money on the honeymoon, and now I'm finding out 3 months into the marriage, man, that this person don't even know how to be happy. This person is miserable. This person complains about everything, because we don't ask those questions. And I think that's why so many people don't understand about happily ever after, because they're not laying the seeds to get there. It's like, when I first started playing basketball, I didn't start playing basketball until I was like 14, 15. Everybody was, because I was playing baseball and football. So I had to work hard. So I was shooting the extra jump shots, man. I'm doing the extra drills, man. I'm working extra hard, to kind of get my game together, because I wanted to be at a certain level. It's the same thing in your relationship, man. You cannot, if you don't have goals or expectations, what are you working for? You ain't working for anything.
Right.
And if you ain't working for anything, you don't get better. And the relationship is no different than the skill or craft that you're trying to hone. This is all everybody been talking about Jalen Hurts. It's so funny because how different,
that's how you know we're from Philadelphia. We always come back to something.
Well, because I think it's important, because I listen to what people around the country are saying about him now. The whole narrative has changed, especially when it comes to a black quarterback. Yeah, because it went from a guy who can't read defenses, who don't know, to a guy who understands defenses.
3-level threat.
He's constantly working on his craft. His knowledge of the game is superior. You hear different terminology now. And so I'm saying, but it's the same thing in relationships. If you're not doing that, you just kind of, you're not going to get better.
No. And I think that's probably a part that's missed too, is like the idea of, we said this tonight, how we change, we grow. And like, I think you got to be accepting of that, of your partner, and like understanding that of yourself too, that things are going to change. And it's going to take time. Like, people got to be willing to kind of give each other some grace in relationships. I do think, again, happily ever after is obtainable, but I do also see.
Well,
like,
at least we made it there. At
and
least, I see a different tone in your
but
voice.
I do
So
say or see like just in again with how
I wish Devin was here for this.
things look in society at the moment. It's just like a lot of confusion out there. I don't see it happening for a good amount of people.
But you can't. I think. But see, that's the problem.
Not saying that it won't happen for myself.
No, but what I'm saying
I'm
is when you
saying,
start
like,
looking at society, this goes back to the
no, I'm
conversation.
good with that.
I'm not saying you. When this goes back to the conversation when the guy was saying what the norm is. That's not the norm. That's a small group of people. That's a norm in that particular group of people. That's not the norm. Like Sunday. I'm preaching at Alonzo's church on Sunday, and my topic is our legacy in Christ. A king's life. And one thing I'm going to talk about is how, we should be separating ourselves from the world. The world should not be dictating how I live. If I know right from wrong, I don't care. My father used to say this all the time. He said, son, how many kids in your class, son? And I would say 25. He said, let me tell you something. If I come up there better only be 24 kids acting a fool. Because you know what's going to happen. He made it abundantly. I don't care what them 24 kids are doing. I couldn't come home and tell my dad, oh, I got in trouble because this is what the rest of the class was doing. That wasn't allowed.
Right. Yeah.
So I learned at a young age that I can't be comparing myself to other people. I can't be out there saying, hey, I did this because of that. And I think that's the problem because people don't do that.
I understand that, but I also say, hey, look at these looters. People are just doing things because they following other people.
Yeah, and they all want to jail. And I'm looking like they got pictures, they doing facial recognition, man. They hunting these people down now. Yeah. And you know why? Because he was downtown. But I'm just saying. But again,
we got a bunch of followers out here.
We do, but I think that's because we keep looking, we comparing ourselves to other people, and I hate to be the guy to keep saying this because this is your role, but social media has done it, man. When social media has raised this non-realistic bar for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
Well, I was having a conversation with a Caucasian person today, and we were talking about Trump, and she said the same thing. She said, it's crazy because how can the guy stand there and say, I can shoot somebody in the middle of New York City, it's okay to grope women, he lie all the time. Yeah, and people still turn around and say, that's my candidate. He could be my president from prison. That's people. So, yeah, that's couple people say, people are saying he could be. So I'm saying society, I agree with society has changed, but I can't look at them and say that's the norm because now it's easy. Once I start saying that and thinking that, it's easy for me to succumb to that. It's easy to become a part of that. It's easy for me to accept that as the truth and reality, and I feel I won't do that.
I mean, that's the norm on that side, and they looking crazy.
Yeah, but then something is wrong with you. If that's your friends and that's the norm in your circle, you gotta look at you.
Yeah, I think it's also, I don't want to say it's necessarily a fact that it's the norm. It's a matter of like who's the loudest, who can be the most viral, like who's got the most kind of reach.
But also say at what point though do we?
It's not the right people that's talking about certain things.
I don't know what's wrong with a little fantasy. I'll say that as we get ready to close. What's wrong with having a little fantasy in life, man? What's wrong with having an imagination? What's wrong with dreaming, man? I don't see the harm in it. I don't see the harm in somebody saying, you know what, I want to have the best possible marriage I can have. Doesn't mean it's going to be perfect because mine is not perfect. And we have our differences and everything. But you know what? It's perfect for me.
Yeah. And I don't want to ruin your what's wrong with a little fantasy moment here, but I agree. Like, I think that kind of fantasizing, like that idea of like happily ever after, I mean, it certainly keeps you motivated in the midst of all this chaos, And I think if you got the right person or partner to do that with, I think that makes all the difference. Like, again, if you and that individual, you on the same page, you know what I mean? Like, you're assuming your responsibilities in that relationship, she or he is responding to their responsibility in that relationship, and no, again, there's going to be some trials and tribulations. Y'all can grow together.
But isn't that what life is about? Isn't that? I mean, I look at some of the hardships I went over. I learned, and I say this all the time. I've been on the foul line, and I hit the shots that won the game. I've been on the foul line, and I missed the shot that lost the game. I've gotten the game-winning hit. I made the final out. But what I'm saying is, they both together helped make me who I am.
Yeah.
It wasn't one over the other. It was both those things together that made me, because when you lose, when you miss a shot, you don't want that again. That taste in your mouth is so sour, it's so that and you work harder. You know, and sometimes you got to ask yourself the question: would you have worked that hard if you had never experienced that feeling? And the answer more times than not is no.
People want the reward without the risk.
I know, I get it.
That's all I have to say.
No.
We get at that. They want the rewards without the risk. Like that's just how.
But that's why they don't have happily ever after.
All right,
Folks, don't listen to him.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, it's real. It's attainable. It's real. You know, I agree with what Gary said about social media. I think social media has put us into a crisis because people just think social media is reality when it's not. Between social media and reality TV, we're in trouble. The guy I was talking to today, and I'm gonna close on this. The guy I was talking to today, and hopefully he ain't watching it. He said something, and me and the girl, all we could do was laugh because when he said norm, I said, okay, where's your norm coming from? He named about 5 TV shows. He named about 5 TV shows.
Well, Dr. Phil,
no,
Steve
he was
Harvey,
talking about
like,
these crazy shows. Like, what's the show? Your mom watches it sometimes. The What You Did for Murder, Love. No, in the Name of Love. They kill, they make. I'm not watching this show. They kill, they make. You know, he's not naming these crazy. No, not even these crazy shows. I'm thinking to myself, that's your problem.
But
that's your norm.
But you know what? That goes to the point of us like saying that social media and media is influencing people. Probably a
my
higher
mother would
rate,
not be proud of me.
a higher rate.
This is the
ever.
second show I've said this in a row. My mother, and I apologize, Mom. God rest his soul. But I have 2 words. Stupid idiot. Because if you want to sit here and look at TV shows, if you want to look at TV shows and they tell you at the beginning of the TV show, these characters are not real. They tell you that. And they tell you that.
People be invested.
It's taken from a case. They didn't say this is the case verbatim. It's taken from a case. Yeah, but what are you investing in? That's my problem. How can you live happily ever after if you investing in nonsense? It's nonsense.
Like, you know, there's people who out there like they run into.
We about to be famous because all those shows will be. What are y'all?
No, you know what I mean? Like they run into people that they seen on the TV show and then they treat them like that character. Like, you know, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you killed him. No, he's still here. That was just a scene. So it's like people are wild like that.
But we
just want to say we had a great show today. I feel like this is a great discussion. Yeah, and
but you know what? We got to get more. I still want to do it. And
I love the comments and interaction.
But if somebody's interested, hit me up because I would love to do something, even if it's through Zoom, have like a panel discussion.
Yeah.
Even if it's through Zoom, man, we can be online, man. We can go through Zoom. We can all be and just have a group discussion around something like this and have discussion live.
I like it. I mean, even like the comments that we've been getting, like we greatly appreciate that tonight. Keep them coming in, guys. Thank you all for listening. You know, we enjoyed tonight's conversation, a little spirited debate, conversation back and forth here. My dad loves when we have these, and he just is thrilled about my opinion on it. So
he forgot that I'm always right.
He's still holding on to that.
I had to remind people that. I had to remind somebody to be at work.
He likes to think that. Thank you guys for tuning in to Above Average Black Men. Again, as always, we're here to empower, inspire, and uplift the community with our conversations. So continue to reach out, guys. Continue to drop comments and like, follow, share, subscribe. Thank you, guys.
See you next week. Same time, same channel.
Good night, guys.